have been a saggy diaper.
I'd be at. Tried to handle. It's ready for the
But we could have taken
Oh, I imagine no.
Kind of like a log truck on the
I have to assume it's like it's on the dash or something, right? Like a text message coming through.
Oh, yeah, that's probably it.
I like the idea of it being like just a truck driving past them.
How are you?
Doing well, how are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
Welcome to Oregon.
It's a great place, great state. Okay, who do we have on the telephone today?
Herman, this is Damien with the Mail Tribune.
Hi, Damien.
Hi, Jeff Mapes.
Jeff?
LTD.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Who else do we?
Nigel Jake with Swalama.
Nigel, nice to have you.
Dan Silkin, Coin TV.
Dan, good to have you.
Jade McDowell from the East Oregonian and Herman Herald.
Ah, nice to have you join us from Eastern Oregon.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming today. As you know, we've had a tumultuous time here this last week in Oregon in the Senate. What I would like to first do is go over the timeline of events, so to try to get those correctly, that everybody knows what has happened this last week. Last week when House Bill 2020 was second read, we knew we had a big problem. As everybody knows, we have worked all session very hard, especially our Senator Bentz, who has just put every drop of energy he has into trying to craft a carbon reduction bill for Oregon that does not dramatically or adversely affect us and our economy. The proposed bill that was second read did not meet that. It was a horrible bill, especially for rural Oregon and anybody that is in the natural resource sector. It also, what a lot of people have not talked about, is that bill was horrible for the lower income people in Oregon, especially those in the metropolitan areas. With that being said, we had a bill that we just could not accept. We knew it would devastate our communities since the Republicans represent rural Oregon. I went to the governor, and the governor agreed that we should enter into talks on that Wednesday. And for 8 hours, Senator Bentz and the governor's staff engaged in a conversation to try to craft some amendments that would make House Bill 2020, cap and trade, a little more palatable for rural Oregon. That evening, the governor's staff called off the talks and said we were done. At that point, the caucus made a decision, a hard decision, and that was to leave the building and deny a quorum. Denying a quorum is something that should never be used until we get to a point where we no longer will talk. It's tough. I actually told the caucus several times that I did not want to leave the Capitol. However, the caucus voted, and we left. And we left the state. We were out of the state. We dispersed in different directions. We were not together. Over the next few days, I had nothing but threats. Threats from the majority leader, threats from the governor and the speaker. I had no threats from the Senate president. Yes, the Senate president was upset that we left, reminded me that we had an agreement from the last time we walked, and I reminded him, in part of that agreement, that cap and trade would have a reset, and that Senator Bentz, who has worked so hard on this legislation, would actually have a place at the table. Because he had been removed from the conversations going back to December of 2018. I was disappointed by the barrage of threats of state police, fines, and the possible removal of capital construction projects from our districts. It saddens me that that's how some people govern in this state. As the days went on, as you know, we were talking to the press. It's kind of hard. We were having multiple conference calls with the caucus during the day. It's extremely hard communicating with the caucus when people are dispersed all over the place. Finally, this week, the governor called me, said that she wants to talk to me. We have to resolve this. And I came back to Oregon by myself. I spoke with the governor and Senator Courtney. We talked about cap and trade would be dead. The Senate president says it would be dead. The governor says it will be dead. And members of the Democratic caucus will be voting no. I talked to them. They said they are no. The bill is dead. So here we are. We've had a rally yesterday that was unprecedented in the history of Oregon. It was rural Oregon. These people came from hundreds of miles. There's a lot of them here, and every one of you's seen that. And there was a lot, and yes, they brought their trucks and their tractors and everything else. We all know that was a big rally, but I want you to know these people came from hundreds of miles across the state. And that's why we walked. We kept telling leadership this bill was going to devastate rural Oregon, and leadership did not believe us. Well, you know what? I think after yesterday, they might believe us now. Rural Oregon had taken a day off from work. They've lost money, but they came to the Capitol to tell how bad this bill would affect them. I don't think anybody is against coming up with a carbon reduction policy, but we got to get it right. Because you know, you look at Australia, the province of Ontario, Alberta, New Mexico, other places around the world that got it wrong and had to repeal it. We've got to get it right. We have a fragile economy here in Oregon. We're a small state. We're only 4.1 million people, and we have to protect our economy. I believe, and our caucus believes, that we can have a carbon reduction policy without totally dismantling our economic machine in Oregon. And we hope in the future that we can work towards that. So here we are today. What's going to happen? I anticipate the Senate Republicans will be on the floor tomorrow at 9 o'clock. We have a constitutional duty to pass all the budget bills, and I hope that the Senate President brings them forth first. so we can get that done. There's no reason to have a special session. If we have a special session, it is because leadership chose to have a special session. After the budget bills, we have some policy bills left. Some of those are good. I would say most of them are good bills, to be honest with you. There are a handful of bills that we are having a conversation about, but I think a lot of those need an up and down vote. I'm confident that we can pass the budget, all the budgets, and we can work through all those policy bills and be out of here by midnight on Sunday. My caucus has told me they are dedicated, working through that agenda and having those conversations. Our mission of walking out of this building was to kill cap and trade. That's what our constituents said. That's what our constituents said yesterday, and that's what we did. And I'm proud of this caucus, even though it's probably the hardest thing that we have ever had to do in all of our lives. And I really, truly hope I never have to do that again. It is tough, let me tell you. So with that, I'll take some questions.
Senator, is there any type of agreement with the Democrats at this point, or is it just becoming, other than that 2020 is dead?
Yeah, our mission was to kill 2020. There is no other agreement in place. Okay?
Senator, are you going to be required to suspend rules on this kind of timeline? I would assume second, third readings need to be suspended. Is there any agreement on that? Are you willing to do that in a blanket fashion or just for certain bills? What is your thinking? The reason we will not give blanket rule suspension, and this is kind of hard for a lot of people to understand the protocols, but I'm assured that cap and trade is dead. However, if somebody wanted to pull it back to the floor and we had blanket rule suspension, then we would have to take a vote. By not giving blanket rule suspension and only having 2 days left in the session, that would not happen. So that is my insurance policy, that cap and trade is dead. Couldn't you just exempt the cap and trade bill and otherwise have rule suspension?
We will have some conversations over rule suspension. I anticipate we'll have some sort of a block rule suspension, as we go through the weekend.
You said there was a handful of...
How many Republicans should we expect to see on the Senate floor tomorrow?
People are traveling right now, and I don't know if they're all going to be able to make Saturday, but I think you'll see the majority of us there Saturday.
You said there's a handful of policy bills that you are still in discussions about.
Mm-hmm.
Give us an idea of what those are.
No, because that conversation's ongoing. And the caucus, we haven't had a chance to caucus on that, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
Are you trying to prevent those policy bills that you're sort of iffy about? Are you trying to prevent those from going to the floor?
Here's my view. I'm talking not for my caucus. This is me. This is Herman. We walked on 2020. So I have a problem extending that walk maybe onto other bills. So we got to have a caucus about that, and we have to caucus about some of that.
Are all the Republican senators coming back this weekend?
I hope so. I was actually amazed how far some of them went.
How far did someone go?
They went a long
You have
ways.
to pay what about the $500 a day fine? Is that gone now?
We're having talks about that, but as of right now, we are still being fined $500 a day.
Are you going forward with a lawsuit, and what would it be, and who would you sue?
Well, since we're having negotiations over the fines right now, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
There's been a lot of speculation about how you all are financing your time out of state, whether you're using campaign contributions or other resources. What can you tell us about that?
We're all using our personal funds.
And that's the plan going forward?
just to use your personal funds?
Yeah.
Senator, what day did you say you came back and started discussing in person with the governor and the?
Wednesday. Wednesday late afternoon.
You condemn Senator Boquist's comments about shooting and possibly killing the state police. Will you also condemn the threats that shut down the state house last weekend?
I don't know what threats you're talking about. I know what Senator Boquist said. You got to remember at that time there was a lot of tempers were flaring. Obviously, his statement was not helpful, but
His statement was not helpful, or was it inappropriate?
I'm going to say it was definitely not helpful. There has been a lot of things said by a lot of senators on both sides of the aisle when the tempers were flaring. So it definitely was not helpful.
What was the hardest thing about staying away for you? You said it was one of the most difficult things you've ever done.
Well, you can imagine trying to talk to the press, trying to talk to your caucus members by phone that were scattered all over, so we couldn't be in the same room. It was really difficult to manage the situation. I think we came out of it okay, but it was definitely a struggle. It was a struggle. I will tell you, on one of my cell phones, I couldn't even use anymore. I had to get another phone. I had to turn it off. I turned it on the next day, and I missed 927 phone calls.
Senator, what was your relationship of the Republicans with the state police? Were there any interactions, and when were you notified that they were no longer going to be looking for you?
So the state police notified us that the governor had activated them and asked if any of us would be willing to come back. I told the superintendent of state police that we were out of the state, and I left it at that. Superintendent of state police contacted me Wednesday and told me that the governor had deactivated them permanently.
Senator, you said denying a quorum, walking out denying a quorum should never be used unless an absolute last resort, basically. So that strikes me that's kind of an arbitrary or judgment call. How do you see your other members in that? Did they set the bar lower? And what do you say to people who say the bar should be you can't do that?
Well, you know, there's different thoughts on this. My thought is that our founders put the quorum in there for this particular reason when you get a supermajority. And that's a last, I mean, if you really think about it, by denying a quorum, you actually force the parties to come back together to start talking again, or nothing goes forward. And that's exactly what has happened. My fear is that it could be abused very easily, that every time you don't get your way, you just walk out. I think that would be abuse of that. I think our caucus carefully looked at these situations and said our districts had said adamantly they could not survive cap and trade. They were very adamant, and I think you've seen that yesterday. So I think that is why the caucus made that decision.
Senator, you indicated that there was a vote on walking out. Would you say that this was something that the majority of the caucus supported, or is this more of a split where there were several people that were...
It was unanimous. Unanimous.
But you said that you didn't support it.
No, I didn't at the beginning, but after we had conversation in the caucus, I agreed.
Were you the only person who didn't want to walk out?
At the beginning, yes.
So the entire rest of your caucus wanted to walk out?
Yes.
Senator, are there credible sources for the militia being associated with the shutdown on Saturday's house?
I have no idea. The militia never contacted me, and to the best of my knowledge, didn't contact any of our members. Yeah, we all seen things in social media. Well, you see a lot of things in social media anymore. So I don't know.
Recommended that the Capitol close.
Well, they obviously they have information that's not that we're not privy to.
Like if there was a hypothetical threat that the state police is saying, do you condemn these groups?
I condemned any kind of violence. You know, one thing, I talked to the state police this morning about what happened at the rally yesterday, and I think we should be absolutely amazed of how many people, how many vehicles, how much equipment, and no incidents, there was nothing. He said that the superintendent of state police says there was no incidents, there was nothing. That absolutely amazes me to have that many people and all the things that were going on, and we didn't have any problems. I take my hat off to rural Oregon for that.
What threats did you hear from the House Speaker? You mentioned some from the governor's office, but I've not heard you say that the House Speaker threatened you.
She's still holding on to capital construction bill over on the House, so you can draw your own conclusions.
Which is it? Are there certain projects that have been threatened? Can you be more clear?
Not specifically, but I will tell you the governor has made calls to elected officials in our districts, alluding to the fact that some of those projects could be in danger.
Are they no longer in danger now, do you know?
That bill is in the House right now. And the governor has line item veto.
What do you say to the rest of Oregon who voted for a Democratic supermajority? The majority of the state said that they wanted, this program that Democrats ran on. Do you think that you're going against democracy, as some Democrats have suggested that you are?
No. I think this country has a long history of when a minority is not, the views of a minority is not respected. This country has a lot of history of pushing back, and I think that's exactly what you've seen here.
Everyone I spoke with yesterday was adamant that you all should stay gone through Sunday, did not trust that the Democrats would live to their word. I think they might be disappointed by hearing this. What would you say to them?
Well, I would agree that the trust in the Oregon State Capitol is probably at the lowest it's ever been. And that saddens me, because it's going to take a long, long time to regain trust amongst legislators. The damage that has been done this session. So I can understand why people don't want us to come back at all. But at the end of the day, we have a constitutional responsibility to get these budgets passed and to keep Oregon functional. And I think we intend to do that, and we only have 2 days to do it.
What is the specific, talk about trust being low. At some point, if you're on the floor, 2020 will be potentially there. What is your specific understanding of what specific motion they'll make to kill the bill?
Well, I anticipate there's a few things that can happen. It can be just an up and down vote. There could be a motion to move it to a committee where it'll just sit and die. Could be a motion to table it, where it could be removed from the table. So there's a few things to go, and that's why we cannot give blanket rule suspension. Any one of those motions, if somebody decided to bring it back to the floor, it has to be read 3 times. We only have 2 days, so it's kind of an insurance policy that it is dead.
And when you say that Democrats have given you assurances, is it just enough Democrats to ensure that the bill goes down, or is it all, what are the numbers?
Well, when the Senate president did what he did on the floor this last week, and then the governor also comes out against it, and I still have some relationships, believe it or not, with some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, and with the insurance policy of not giving blanket rule suspension, I feel confident that it is dead.
Moving forward, how can you repair a relationship with Democrats who say that you are the one who broke the deal here, that you would not walk out again, but you did? What will you do to get back to a sense of bipartisanship and civility, if you're even interested in those things?
I think most Democrats realize that cap and trade never got reset, and that was part of the deal.
I think people would disagree with that statement.
What has changed in that bill since we entered into that agreement? Nothing.
There were
It was-
amendments, I believe, and also Senator Benson was at the table, is my understanding.
And they did not entertain his, he had a lot of amendments that would make it, especially with trucking. You know, especially with
My understanding is that
trucking.
we only needed to have a seat at the table, not necessarily that the bill had to change according to Democrats.
You know, that's your perception.
So you're not going to work towards bipartisanship with Democrats moving forward?
I didn't say that.
In hindsight, do you wish there was more clarity on the term reset in the original negotiation in May?
You know, it's one of those things when you're in the room that we all probably had a little bit different definition of reset. And so, yes, I think if I had to do that all over again, that I would change some of the wordage, yes.
Because there was not an explicit agreement that Bens's amendments move forward. There was just an understanding that they would be taken, I guess you thought they weren't taken seriously enough, or?
You know, even up to the last minute, Senator Johnson had some amendments. There was a 117. There's 117 amendments to this bill. You're going to tell me that's a good bill?
Just to follow up on a previous question, though, you mentioned, trust is at an all-time low. And it's not just the walkout, but I think Senator Boquist's comments contributed to that. What do you see your caucus's role in rebuilding those relationships? Like what are your goals there?
Well, first of all, what's right in front of us, and that's to get these budget bills and policy bills worked through the system and get out of here by midnight on Sunday.
What response do you anticipate to receive from Democrats when your caucus returns to the floor tomorrow?
I don't know. I think there will be mixed emotions.
What's your takeaway on how Republicans, despite being such a minority, were able to wield influence by the two walkouts in the Senate, by the full reading of the bills in the House, and get certain bills that Republicans didn't like killed? What's your takeaway, and were you surprised by the effect that all that had?
I think the Republicans fought very, very, very hard for representing their districts this session. I really do. They fought very hard.
Democrats have circled a few districts that they think are winnable in the next election cycle as a way to get past this threshold of having 20, so you can't walk out anymore. Is there any fear that this walkout could diminish an already small caucus?
Oh, there's always that fear, but I'm going to worry about elections later. Right now, I got to worry about Saturday and Sunday and fulfilling our constitutional duty and getting out of the building. And I'll take one more question.
What's your caucus's sense on the tobacco tax? That's one of the bills that's coming over to the Senate.
Well, since we really haven't had a caucus meeting with all the members there, I will tell you that will definitely be in that conversation. But we have not met. We have not met as a caucus in over a week. So we will probably be having those discussions. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all coming. And let's hope we get through this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. I'm Ron Verini. I'm over from Ontario.
Oh.
Used to be the mayor over there.
Oh, okay.
Senator, if it gets pushed to rules right away, 2020, does that not then